For many in our generation, late night conversations, the first dates, and family catch ups were often at cafe coffee day. We loved the brand, and the entrepreneur behind it was a hero to many of us. And yet, somewhere along the way, the pressure that he carried inside to build that brand was far heavier than the applause on the outside. We know how that story ended. Pressure sometimes breaks us. It breaks good people. And when it doesn't, it does something equally dangerous. It convinces very capable people that they have fewer choices than they actually do. And once that happens, even smart decisions start coming from a place of feeling trapped. As an entrepreneur, I see this very often, especially in founders who live inside the trenches and build things in long stretches of time. Building something is tough. It means deciding when information is incomplete, when money is tight, and when your identity is on the line. And over time, pressure doesn't just exhaust you. It just changes how you interpret reality. Here's the idea that I want to explore with all of you today. Under pressure, stories feel like facts. The stories that we tell ourselves sometimes begin to destroy us. When I say story, I don't mean something very dramatic. I mean the quiet interpretation that we add and we sprinkle on top of facts on a daily basis. Stories like, why me? This shouldn't be happening. Or that I don't have any other option left to pursue. These stories feel true. Not because they are true, because under pressure, it narrows our field of vision. Research consistently shows that founders experience significantly higher rates of pressure, anxiety, and depression than a general population. You might have heard a beautiful line from the Booker Prize-winning author Ben Okri. Beware of the stories you read and tell. Subtly, at night, beneath the waters of consciousness, they start altering your world. So how do you really know that this is happening to you? You start protecting your image more than the problem at hand. You delay hard conversations. You assume what others will think without even asking them. You stop seeking input and instead you start rehearsing your justifications before you go into a conversation. And that moment when that happens, agency inside you begins to disappear. And that is when people stop asking for help. Not because they are proud, but because the story says that help is no longer available to you. And yet, we still continue functioning, we continue building, we continue leading, and sometimes we even get applauded. So let me tell you when this happened really for me in my own life. Payroll was around the corner, the bank balance was really tight, and clients were not paying up on time. We had only 1 quarter of revenue left. These were all the facts. At the same time, I started meeting new investors to raise money for our company. One meeting went really well. And as we were walking out of the door, he turned very casually, our new investor, looked at me and said, "How much runway do you have, Saloni?" I just froze because I knew 2 things. One, the truth that there was no money in the bank. And the second, that nobody boards a sinking ship. And sure enough, the investor backed out. What did that do to me? My story just became louder. Real founders don't function like this. This is failure. This is my end. This is the end of my company. The facts were difficult, but the story was really just what was trapping me. I went to my board after a few sleepless nights with fear and with trepidation. And I remember thinking in that moment that this might be the time when they lose confidence in me completely. One experienced board member just looked at me and said, "This won't be the last time that this happens. It is part of building a company and it will happen again." He cut us a small check, saved us that quarter, but he urged us to apply for a bank loan. Not easy, but we applied and that saved and moved things forward for us. Guess what? We are 19 years old today. And that is what flipping a story does to you. It doesn't magically create cash. It doesn't make the decision easy. It doesn't even change the situation. But it gives you something very critical. It gives you agency. Agency doesn't mean control over the outcomes. It means controlling how you meet that moment. When fear is in charge, You protect your ego, you hide, you react. But when agency returns, you ask better questions. You make smaller, more manageable decisions instead of very desperate ones. The situation may look the same from the outside, but internally, something just shifts. You're no longer deciding as someone who's been cornered. Instead, you start deciding as someone who's present. And that difference, more than strategy, more than grit, keeps people in the game long enough to survive the hard parts and helps us live life on life's terms. And this isn't a founder's problem. This is a human one. Pressure shows up for each one of us all the time, in leadership, in relationships, in life. And when it does, it tells you the same lie. There are no good options. And that is how our own stories trap us. So the next time that you feel that familiar tightening in your chest, in your thinking, in your story, just remind yourself and stop and pause and ask yourself, how can I flip the story? Not the perfect flip, not the easy flip, just a small attempt that might open a new path. And that question probably will not solve everything for you, but the question will give you something that is far more important. Because the moment that you remember you have a choice, the story loosens its grip. Thank you.